for the day. Major parties have put out their manifestos. Who are you voting for in the coming elections? Send us your comments at the agenda_SABC. Would like to look at those later on. But also send us your questions for our guest, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, Mr. Mmusi Maimane, who would like to welcome right now in the studio. Thank you so much for making the time this morning.
Thank you, and it's great to be here with you, and greetings to all fellow South Africans.
22.23% of the vote in the last election. Are you feeling emboldened after Saturday?
Absolutely. I think, first of all, that DA is the only party that represents all South Africans. We're the party that's standing up saying we want to look at the future of South Africa. And we're the party that's showing that in government we deliver for all South Africans. Therefore, I'm feeling confident that the future of the party is strong, our growth is there. And then we indicate the fact that actually we're the only party that is capable of being able to create work for our citizens.
When you are, Mmusi Maimane, talking about social cohesion and bringing all South Africans together, and you have a manifesto launch very well attended, but as you look across, there's only black faces. Does it worry you?
I think it's a misreading of the situation. I think more than anything...
It definitely is, because people will say that the DA voter does not necessarily attend rallies but will vote. But unpack it for us.
I think, first of all, if you were to look at the demographics of the event on Saturday, of course there must be majority black. No one must debate that particular question. But you could see white South Africans were there, colored South Africans were there. We don't run a census as people come through the gate to decide which race is coming through. We invite all South Africans. And quite
doesn't
frankly,
worry you?
I was proud of the fact that there was a diversity of South Africans, and South Africans all over at home were watching, they were covering the event, and were enthused by it. And we build a party that says we must reflect all. This weekend I'll be going to KZN, to the various provinces. You will see the wide array of DA supporters all the way across. I'll be launching the Western Cape Manifesto. There you will see the diversity of South Africans, and perhaps there you might have a bigger representation of different races that are there. We are not here to run a racial census. I'm here to look at the party in general in South Africa, and you'll recognize the fact that it represents all South Africans.
What stood out for you on Saturday?
Well, I think what was important was that people heard our message. They heard that we wanted to go out there and put a job in every home. It was very encouraging to see the fact that in the leadership of the DA it represents a diverse group of people. I think it was important for us to also demonstrate now a DA that has grown. It stood out for me that now you've got mayors. Before, the DA didn't have mayors in different parts, and they came out, they put their message on the table. So I think this is a party that is on the up, that is growing, and that's why I thought, to me, Saturday, even myself sitting in the stands, could appreciate and feel a real impression of the fact that this is a party for all South Africans.
Are you getting a sense now in terms of what your performance will look like at the polls in May? Yeah,
we deliberately obviously track where we are at. We're confident about Gauteng. We certainly have bringing out a lot of work here. And obviously we want to govern in the Northern Cape, retain the Western Cape, but also increase our national vote. I think the vision of the DA moves beyond just narrow party politics. The vision of the DA is a vision that says, how do we engage all citizens? How do we show competence in delivery? But also, furthermore, we're the only party that's saying, how do we bring honest policing that can work for citizens? How do we secure our borders? And how do we ensure that ultimately services are delivered faster?
We're talking to Mmusi Maimane. On Saturday, his party, the Democratic Alliance, launched the Manifesto for Change. We asked our viewers to interact with us in this conversation and send us some questions. I think we're going to put some of them up right now. Let's see. I'm not getting the right screen. Okay, Homoto Maklo saying some people believe that racism still exists. Do you believe that racism still exists in South Africa? If yes, how do you plan to overcome it? Some of this elements we touched on at the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, racism is a function of our history. We come from a painful history of racial divisions between black and white. Today, those elements still exist. It's not that in 1994 we switched off the switch of racism. It still is pervasive in society. The win against racism is not to enhance further racism. Hatred only begets hatred. It doesn't. It achieves that sense. What we've got to do is make sure that we build a reconciled society. We've got to confront racism when it exists. We've got to allow those who sit in the center, those South Africans who say it's better for us to work together, to be quick at condemning it. And I think actually as a society, we've been able to achieve a transition from legalized racism. We are now moving on to addressing social racism. But furthermore, we've got to then get on to the question of economic exclusion of black South Africans.
Yeah.
Because when we build places of work must be diverse. We must make sure that industry reflects the interests of our people. And this way we can build society upon which all citizens can prosper. That's the goal. But to address racism, I also want to say it's crucial that all citizens must also be able to stand and be proud of who they are. If you are white and you are Afrikaans, you need to be proud of that. If you are black and you are Zulu, you need to be proud of that. What we mustn't be doing is creating a society that just says non-racialism does not mean an identity. People being able to identify themselves in whatever race, culture they choose to do so. Our constitution gives us the right to self-identify.
It's a social challenge that keeps coming up, especially in terms of DA conversations. And what is the plan in terms of...
I've made it crystal clear. If you are racist, don't vote for the DA. We're not interested in that. We're not interested in racists. We're interested in people who say, I want to build a South Africa for all. I want to work with all the people. Yeah. Racism is a South African problem. I think it's a miss to suggest that it's unique to a particular party, etc. It was the other day, we're facing in the Equality Court right now as we speak, there's a case of ANC people who are there, there's a case of different parties who are there. The fact of the matter is that just because someone has been systematically excluded from the economy does not mean it relegates them from not being racist. It means that they can be racist. Racism is an attitude of the heart that seeks to hate another human being for the color of their skins. That's not something that's unique to any particular party. It's a societal issue. It's a global issue. What we've got to do is fight hard at building a reconciled society. That's why our politics at the moment become very dangerous. When you have parties, on one end, you get a party that says we only represent white people. That's wrong. When you, on another end, you get a party that says we only represent black people. That's dangerous. It splits society. We are the party that's standing up saying, let's stand for all South Africans. And the beauty about Saturday, the beauty about what is going on in our society is that, in fact, we can bring all of those people together to stand together for this vision of a non-racial South Africa, South Africa for all. President
Cyril Ramaphosa famously said in the State of the Nation address that there's going to be a song between you and the EFF. Predictions that there's going to be coalition politics after the elections. You have already had the chance to work with the economic freedom fighters at a local level. That relationship doesn't seem to be moving to the next level. What are the challenges in that relationship?
Coalitions in and of themselves are hard work. Make no mistake about that. But ultimately, they're still the future of South Africa. What's been important is that we've been able to get in the ring, argue about things, but emerge out of there with budgets.
Give us a sense of those arguments.
Look, we've got to debate. Obviously, the EFF's ideology is not something the DA shares. That's why we're not in a formal coalition with them. They want to nationalize...
You made it clear on Saturday in terms of land?
Absolutely. They want to nationalize land ownership. We want citizens to own land in their own right. And it's the same for the ANC. They want to nationalize the Reserve Bank. We think the independence of the Reserve Bank is key. So there's all of these contrasts. What needs to happen here in South Africa is that the parties that we've worked with also, who have agreed, Congress of the People, the Freedom Front Plus, all the other ones, we seem to have found a place where we say, can we put citizens at the center of it? So my view on coalitions is this, is that let's build a constitution. Let's agree that the Constitution of South Africa is important.
Do you agree that coalition politics are going to be taking center stage after this election?
Absolutely. They're the future of our country. They are the future of our country. One-party dominance is dangerous for South Africa. One-party dominance is what gives you state capture. That's what one-party dominance does. What you want is a coalition that is based on principle, that says constitutionalism, non-racialism, a market-based economy, a capable state, and an eradication of corruption. We agree on that plan, we can go forward. And I'll work with anyone who agrees with that. In the meantime, let's build a strong DA so that we can be able to dictate the negotiations going forward.
You say you want to create a situation where in every household, at least one person has a job.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How do you hope to bring that about?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to live in a home without a job. We want a job in every home. And the way we put it out is the fact that 40% of our households in South Africa simply don't have an income in them. They depend either on remittances or they depend on grant income. It's hard when people don't have a job. So we're saying, let's assist in stimulating micro-enterprise. Let's focus on city-led economic growth so that small businesses can thrive. Let's ensure that key sectors of the economy can grow, both in urban and rural. Because as I travel the beauty of our country, tourism is a key sector, agriculture is a key sector, manufacturing is going to be important if we can stabilize energy and give the appropriate tax incentives within that space. And then ultimately, we want to introduce a national civilian program where young people can spend a year where they're able to work. We'll give them an income during that year, so that during that year they can learn the skills and 6 months of internships. Ultimately, over a long period of time, it's about ensuring that in every home, at least one person is working. I'm not saying it's the only person that must work, but at least one, so that we can increase the opportunity for our households to have income coming into them.
When you speak about young people, you also mentioned 35-year-olds possibly getting a grant. Is that...
yeah, it's key.
The limit that you're looking at in terms of young people?
This is about young people, and it's about ensuring that this National Civilian Year program is part of the program of intervention for young people to be able to come on board. We are of the complete view that youth unemployment in our country is the highest in the world, and if we don't attend to that particular issue, it will forsake a generation. Because when young people are unemployed, they become further unemployable.
Let's look at another question from our viewers. Gucci Revolutionary Spoo says, when are they going to balance the scale of top management in the party? I don't know if Mmusi understands that question, because yeah,
I think, look, our job is always to build diverse places of work. And frankly, it's an objective that we try and reach across all sectors. It's not just in the party, it's also across parliament. It's also equally so. I want people at work to know. I speak to a lot of young black professionals who say, we've hit a ceiling here. Can you assist us? And I understand that. I understand the inequality of our past. What I want is diverse places of work, and I want more people to be able to come into places of work so that our boardrooms are looking more diverse, so that our places of work are much more diverse. And I will fight for those who are left out. My job is to make sure South Africa is a country for all citizens, one South Africa for all, that works to bring prosperity.
I want to suggest to my producers that perhaps we look at several questions at a go instead of one. Shall we do that? Let's take a look at another one now. Okay, rural areas that don't have water, roads and jobs. How are you going to change the rural areas to be better places to live? Charles Chilwani from Bushbuck Ridge. Let's take a look at another one. All right, it seems it's being lined up. It will come up anytime soon.
Sure.
As you said, you'll be traveling throughout the country, and there's somebody from Bushbuck Ridge here.
I have been. I mean, the first thing about rural communities is that we've got to give security of tenure. We've got to make sure people can own land. Because part of the problem with investment or disinvestment in rural areas is because you become uncertain as to what happens to land ownership. And that's why things like share equity schemes that allow farm workers and farm owners to be able to work together to be able to create the appropriate economic advancements. Secondly, we've got to stimulate agriculture because that's key to creating work. We furthermore need to ensure that in rural communities we develop the right infrastructure. Infrastructure backlogs in rural communities such as water and delivery of basic services has slowed down.
You know, conversations about rural areas always worry me. They're so disingenuous coming from politicians, where it seems like they just want to grandstand all the time about the things that they project that they can do in rural areas, and hardly anything ever happens.
Well, we've had in rural communities governments that have been led by the ANC, and frankly, if you can appreciate, you go to the Transkei, you'll discover the collapse of the Transkei, where the DA has come on board, particularly in rural municipalities. I can assure you, in the spread of the Western Cape, you can see the delivery of water, you can see the delivery of electricity, you can see the delivery of road infrastructure. We don't talk about these things, we do. In comparison, you must compare DA governments with any other government, you'll discover very quickly no money is stolen and delivery actually takes place.
You like to talk about the kind of visible achievements that where in areas where the DA has been given the chance to be in government. What are the challenges in terms of taking the ante up?
Look, Governance is a tough job, and we've got to ensure constantly that we are delivering for people. But if I give you just some basic stats, even here in Joburg, 6,000 title deeds have been issued to people. When I look at the city of Tshwane, already infrastructure development, we inherited a municipality that was 2 billion rands in the red. Now that municipality is showing a profitable municipality that delivers for more people. We ensure that we resurfaced all the road infrastructure in the Western Cape within the budget without trying to introduce tolls. That's why we think here in Gauteng we don't need e-tolls. Rather, what we need is a government that will take all of its resources to road infrastructure that we can build on place. Where in the latest quarterly labour force survey, 100,000 jobs have been created in the city of Johannesburg since the DA has come on board. So these are deliberate interventions that we focus. If you're not committed to stealing people's money and focused on the people, you can ensure you deliver for citizens.
Some polls predict that the ANC will be getting a bigger chunk of this election yet again. Is that the DA's projection? And if it is, where do you see a role being?
Far from. I don't think the ANC will get a commanding majority as what people like to read out there. I think it's a bit of an anomaly for me. Why would we ask a party that has looted for 5 years to fix the mess it created, as if we should just sit back and almost take the abuse that the ANC is telling us? The liberators have become people who are stealing from our people, and that must concern all of us as citizens. So I think another 5 years isn't going to bring in a new change. The ANC has proven its character. Yeah. That's what it is. What's important is that even our own internal polling is showing that the DA is in fact growing and the ANC is in decline. What's going to be important is that you can put a new driver in President Ramaphosa, but the bus remains the same, and it's a broken down bus, and it's a bus that's not going to take South Africa to economic prosperity.
There has been talk about the DA being broken itself, but let's look at that when we get back. You're watching The Agenda. We're talking to the leader of the Democratic Alliance, Mmusi Maimane, and we have two questions that we want to look at from our viewers. Let's look at those right now. Please bring them up on the screen. Renaissance Man says, does the DA have a stance on transforming the racially skewed patterns of ownership in the economy? Right, and Benny Tabiso, what would happen to you if you lose this coming election? Racially skewed economic...
Yeah, absolutely. It's a concern. But what's important is that we've got to break down monopolies. Our fundamental issue is that the more we can stimulate new industries, new companies, that in the main are black owned, and so the plan is we must create a jobs and justice fund, ask people to contribute to it. The old model that the ANC...
What are those new industries that you're talking about?
Well, that's key. So if we even look at diversification of even the banking sector, that's got to include new banks that are coming on board that are owned by South Africans who are historically disadvantaged. When we look at mining, when was the last time we sunk a new mine in South Africa that is owned by black South Africans? So to achieve that objective is about creating a jobs and justice fund that will be able to do that so that it can stimulate that economic growth in that space. Equally so, it's about ensuring that shareholding patterns in places of work is no longer reduced to politically connected people, but those who work in a mine, for example, must own the shares in the mine, because that's about ensuring that ownership patterns are being transitioned. Yeah. And ultimately, when you look at the new students who are studying mining, these are majority black South Africans. So we set up a jobs and justice fund that might be able to give them an opportunity to get a foot in the door of that particular industry and in other industries. So if you look at the insurance industry as an example, let's create a fund so that new insurance companies can come on board, led by legitimate black business. You don't want politicians who become businessmen overnight because they arrive at a tender adjudication meeting and get tenders. What you want is for people who are running legitimate businesses to be able to get the appropriate funding and be able to come on board. To diversify the industry is about growing the industry. It's about ensuring that there are new entrants that are coming on board so that we can increase the participation of black South Africans and other South Africans into the economy. It'll be the vibrant economy that is diverse going forward.
Let's talk about the perception that you are running a solo ship in the DA. You don't have support, especially with Patricia de Lille now having left the party. What is happening within the DA? Are you confident of your federal council, their strength in supporting you in going into this election?
It's one matter that is a figment of people's imagination, because frankly, the DA just held its Congress in 2018, got an overwhelming mandate, had no opposition. And I think the next Congress of the DA is in 3 years' time, and I'm certain that we'll have a commanding support. Leaders are standing with us. We don't take anything for granted. We're focused on the elections. We're growing the organization. And ultimately, I have no doubt that in any organization, there may be a few people here and there who disagree with you, but that's part of change. If you want to change an organization, not everybody is going to enter that immediately quickly. We're trying to grow the organization. We're trying to achieve a level where the DA reflects even in more communities and governs in more places. So an organization that is growing is going to have some of these growth pains. But without doubt, I am not even worried about that matter, because I think the organization recognizes the vision and is working cohesively towards achieving that vision. If the party was in trouble, you would never have seen a manifesto launch that looked like this weekend.
The new mayor of Tshwane today is going to be outlining the results of the report on Glad Africa and that contract that eventually got Mr. Msimang, although he has stated different reasons for leaving, but sentiment is that he left because of that contract.
Once again, let's not deal with sentiment, let's deal with facts. The Auditor General has come out to say that contract was badly adjudicated. In fact, that it puts accountability at the Chief Accounting Officer, who is the city manager. Therefore, ultimately, we've got to deal with that. We are serious in government. We don't deal with contracts that are corrupt. We don't deal with people who are corrupt. We take deliberate action. And so what's going to happen is that laying out the fact that that contract was poorly adjudicated, it will be rescinded so that we can actually follow the due process, so that we can effectively deliver on that basis. It's got nothing to do with Solly Msimanga. I wanted Solly Msimanga to focus on the province of Gauteng and campaign.
So the DA goes into this
right thing by dealing with that contract.
So the DA goes into this election completely 100% confident that Solly Msimang is their man, and you've been saying that you're going to take over Gauteng.
Absolutely. We're the party that's shown that where we govern, actually things happen. And Gauteng can do with delivery. I'm a citizen of this province, and I would really want this province to be able to be a place where work is created, where in fact safety is prioritized, that we can ultimately make sure we deliver services in a much more accelerated way. That one day life as Itimeni would never happen in a province like Gauteng. And that's why it's key that Solly Msimanga becomes premier in this province.
Gauteng is considered the economic hub of the country, and there has been issues in terms of policy direction within the Democratic Alliance in terms of broad-based black economic empowerment. How do you hope to run this economy if you get the bag?
Let me just say a few things. Firstly, BBBEE is an ANC model of redress. Redress is a pillar of the DA. Fairness is a pillar of the DA. Just because I'm critical of how the ANC does its thing does not mean I support economic inclusion.
But do you have a plan?
But there is a plan, and that's what I want to lay out. When you look at the economy of Gauteng, you must remember that cities play a crucial role in that. And what we want to do is stimulate micro-enterprise. Gauteng has a great opportunity in terms of manufacturing. So how can we give the appropriate tax incentives so that more goods are being made here that can be exported to other parts? We can use the agricultural sector as a key opportunity here to develop not only jobs and be able to ensure that there's an export market that comes from here. We have a plan that ensures that if national government was to hear us, how do we ensure that we break down certain labor regulations so that people can opt in and out of it, so that people can choose to say...
You've actually said on Saturday that you want to create a system where it will be easy to fire people.
No, I said on Saturday that we must take out labor regulation that makes it difficult for people to get on to the economy. So let me give you a practical example. Minimum wage is a great idea, except our minimum wage at the moment is set at 80% of the median wage. Treasury, the ANC's treasury, says 700,000 people will be fired as a result of this. What I'm saying is let's allow young people to be able to opt in and out of it, so they can make a choice to say, I will choose to opt out of this policy so that I can get a job and be employed. So the plan here is about ensuring that more people get into work. The South African government and the ANC has represented the rights of those who are on the inside. I'm here to fight for those who are on the outside. What about those people who are not working? Who's speaking for them?
The kind of system you're touting is being discussed globally in terms of new ways of employing people. How applicable is it for South Africa?
It's crucial. It's crucial. South Africa we must get on to the future. We must become we can leapfrog the industrial era where we made people just simply come and work in factories in a conveyor belt. We can create an innovative hub where people are future focused. And therefore, labor regulation is going to have to change, whether we like it or not. We're going to have to create labor of the future. And therefore, I think South Africa has a great opportunity. This is about being future focused. It's not about developing a vision for 1994.
All right.
It's a vision for 2019.
We asked our viewers that the major parties have released their manifestos. Who are you voting for? But also we asked you to talk to us in terms of, to interact with us in terms of this conversation we're having with DA leader Mmusi Maimane. What is your position on sport transformation? That's an interesting one.
Maybe...
especially in relation to the conversation about Castor now. Nkosi says, what plan do you have to control porous borders and what adverse effects does this have in the country's economic growth? Let's take a look at another one. What does he think of expropriation of land without compensation? I think he has made that particular one clear.
I mean, starting with the first one, the transformation of sport is a function of development of sport. Today, we don't have a pipeline of talent that's coming through. We want young people from everywhere to be able to come through. By the way, I don't think we need a Ministry of Sport. I think that is a waste of money. Let's merge it with education. That's part of my plan of minimizing government so that we can ensure that there's an effective development of young people coming through. That will give us the best cricketers, soccer players, and all of the aspects of rugby players that will be diverse in South Africa.
The space involves enough passion already. You can count on the people who are entrepreneurial within that space to move it forward.
Absolutely.
Without
a cumbersome bureaucracy and all of that, I think just as long as we create a talent pipeline, even amongst our education sectors, we'll be able to achieve a transformed sporting sector. But the issue of porous borders is absolutely vital. Remember, South Africa at the moment in time...
In fact, before you finish your answer, I was listening to somebody the other day saying the DA is the only party that actually openly talks about this conversation.
Undeniably. You cannot simply... I travel all over the world. I've traveled in Africa. No African country simply says to you, you can come in and out without any adjudication. My call is to say, let's make sure those who want to come into South Africa legally can do so. We can give them legal certainty. We can give people an adjudication on all statuses, refugee status, asylum seeking, citizenship, all of that.
You don't think that's happening already?
It isn't happening. It is not happening. I've been to different borders in South Africa. You can walk in and out. We don't know what the certainty is. You know, we bought two vehicles for police in Nelson Mandela Bay. They were stolen. They end up in Namibia because our borders are simply just porous. We've got to make it possible. And then those who want to come into South Africa illegally simply cannot come in. So we've got to be effective at borders. We've traveled all across. Remember, our South African National Defence Force is tasked with the duty of protecting our borders. The average age of an army officer today is 42. When you speak to the generals in the army, they will tell you they have no equipment, no facilities to defend our borders.
So when a person has come in legally and you've clarified their status, how do you determine how much portion of the economy, of the health services, do you give them?
No, once you are in the country, we can protect your rights. We can be able to give access to facilities. At this point in time, we don't know. We simply don't have an idea. So let me give you a practical example. If you go to Tembisa, not far from here, all of the children who are born there, who give birth there, 6 out of 10 of them are non-South African citizens. We don't know who those individuals are. And what I'm saying is with a proper registration management, we can ensure that those citizens are well looked after and that their rights are protected.
As it always happens
at the border, we've got to ensure that our borders are secure.
As it always happens with television conversations, we then are tied by time. Mmusi Maimane is the leader of the Democratic Alliance. What's your overall message in terms of the lead up to the elections in May?
Let's build one South Africa for all. Let's ensure there's a job in every home. Let's ensure that we have an honest and a professional police service that can make sure our citizens are safe. Let's accelerate the delivery of basic services, especially in key areas like health and education. Let's eradicate corruption by making sure politicians who are corrupt get 15 years in jail. And finally, let's make sure that we secure our borders. This is South Africa for all. We can make this nation an incredible one that can compete with anyone else in the world.
Well, there you have it. Those are his thoughts. Mmusi Maimane, what do you think? Are you going to vote for him? Let us know. Let's continue the conversation at the agenda _ SABC. You're watching The Agenda. Let's take a break. We'll be back in a moment.